Gen X and mental health. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's go back. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Gen X Unfiltered, the podcast.
What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Steve, Eric, hello.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Yourself?
Good. Welcome back, everybody.
Good.
Another exciting podcast coming up.
Before we get into this podcast really quickly, I'm just going to say we obviously are talking about mental health, and we just want to encourage anybody who struggles with any kind of mental health to please seek out local resources, to get help if you need it, talk to loved ones. Just don't be afraid. Just reach out and do what you need to do to get some help.
We'll put a couple of numbers in the info below, in the description below. I can think of the word for a second.
All right, so we're talking about Gen X and mental health. I just have a little blurby thing that we wrote, that we got from, the good old Googles. Just sort of summarizing Gen X and mental health and just sort of the complexities behind it. And then we can kind of dive into the different little subcategories. Generation X has experienced a complex relationship with mental health, shaped by a number of factors, including societal stigma, lack of access, and personal experiences. Gen X grew up in times of pronounced economic fluctuations, technological advancements, and evolving family structures. Yet, in a climate of change, they discovered the comfort in narratives of films like The Breakfast Club and Reality Bites, which echoed the current dynamics of evolving identities amidst a changing family structure. This era witnessed a surge in dual-income households and rising divorce rates, leading to a significant number of Gen X youth to look after themselves more frequently. The normalcy of returning home to an empty house after school is what earned this generation the nickname the Latchkey Kids. This is not only a label, but a shared experience that underscores the early independence and responsibility instilled from a young age. And then here's some factors that have impacted Gen X's mental health. Mm-hmm. So first is the stigma. Mental health was stigmatized during Gen X's formative years, and they were often encouraged to keep their personal issues private. What would you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone talked about that stuff. Yeah.
No. God,
like,
no.
I mean, I kind of didn't think about, but sort of in the first part of the time of the movies, I kind of forgot, the Breakfast Club that was sort of all about
the family dynamics and stuff.
Well,
like
the
that.
family dynamics, also the dynamics of, being in high school and growing up and stuff like that. And, the different sort of the jocks and the cool kids and the sort of badasses and the rich kids. And
I think it was one of those
dichotomy that kind of played on mental health issues.
I think it was one of those things too. Like, I can only speak for myself, but I don't think it was like we don't talk about that. It was just, it wasn't talked about. Does that make sense? So it wasn't like you were told not to talk about your feelings. It just was never, hey, you want to talk about your feelings? It was never invited. Yeah. So you just never really.
It was never like a place where you could talk about that stuff.
Or you just felt awkward doing it. At least my own experience.
Yeah, no one ever was like, hey, anything you want to talk about? Or
at least my parents.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling? How does that make you feel? Whether it's, whatever stuff you see in the news or stuff that happened in the city or in the, the local economy or globally or.
Well, there's so
many.
Really
asked how you felt about anything. It was just kind of.
Well, here's a perfect example that I see all over the internet. I'm like, oh my God, that is so true. But you don't really think of it. But we were all very young when that Challenger exploded. Yeah. And it happened during the school day when lots of kids went home for lunch and they watched the news and then they just went back to school. Like my mom, and it's no shade on my parents, but my mom or my teachers never sat down and explained what happened. We just literally saw people blow up on TV and it was like, go back to school, enjoy your life.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't like,
right?
You hear now when there's a tragedy, whatever, but you see they'll be like, oh, there's counselors
if you
available
want to talk about it
and stuff like that, whereas that was never the case. And I remember as a kid, in high school and stuff, kids would get killed and a couple of kids were getting hit by cars and things like that. Yeah. But there
was no.
I remember them making an announcement on the speaker, or the PA system, being like, it's really sad that someone passed away. But
that was it.
I remember that because I remember one guy breaking down because it was one of his closest friends, and he just lost it in class.
Oh my God!
And it was just like. Oh, okay. Well, I guess.
Well,
that was it.
When I was young, in grade 7, I had a really good friend who got really, really sick. She ended up getting cancer, and then she was away from school for a little bit, kind of lost touch. She came back in grade 9, and I wasn't obviously close friends with her then. You change friends like you change your underwear back then. But I knew of her, and she came back to school for the first half of grade 9. She disappeared again, and then it was over the announcement, oh, so and so passed away.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So I went home and I remember telling my mom, and my mom was just like, oh, that's, and again, no shade to my mom, but it wasn't a big discussion about it. She was just, it was almost like, oh, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, like, oh, that's really sad.
That's information.
Okay,
yeah,
we
and
went
like,
for dinner.
I no, but for real, and like, it sounds so stupid, but like, I literally think about that whole experience like often in my adult life.
Oh yeah, no, like losing's,
it's a traumatic moment.
As a kid, like you don't. It's different if it, like, losing anybody, but like someone your own age is like, especially like when you're that young, like that's it's not supposed to happen. It's weird. It's unnatural.
And you would talk with your friends about it, but I mean, you're all kids, right?
No,
so like, it's not. But it was just, and like, I don't remember there being. I mean, maybe I'm sure if you went to a teacher and said, "I'm feeling really sad," but again, it wasn't a natural thing to do because as kids, you kind of just want somebody to come to you and be like, "Are you okay?" Because I'm sure if somebody did that, you might end up being like, "No, I'm not."
Well, no, and that's kind of the whole thing nowadays is that people ask more and reach out more because a lot of people won't say anything unless someone specifically comes up and asks you. Well,
how often?
Like, I don't want to burden people with my problems or
how often are you asked just in a general daily basis, like, "Hey, how are you today?" And your automatic response is like, "Oh, I'm good." But lots of times you're not good.
Well, what they call it, masking, I guess.
Yeah.
You just put on that mask like, I'm okay. And
I'm fine. But like, how many people actually aren't fine? But like, I find like, especially people of our generation, like, it's not like I'm going to be like, if you ask me that, I'm going to be like, well, you know what? It's really like, it's just a weird thing to do.
It's a weird thing too, right? Like if someone asks you like, hey, how you doing? And you're not doing good. And you're like, you actually like unload and be like, I'm doing awful, blah, blah, blah. That person's probably going to be like, oh my God, I didn't want to know all this.
Well, and that's the double-edged sword. How many times, and I know I'm guilty, but how many times have you said to someone, hey, how's it going? You don't really give a shit how it's going per se. You're not.
It's more of like a greeting.
You're not looking to, you're not sort of asking them, being like, hey, I think there's something I'm worried about you, which is a whole different conversation. But I think it's more of just a general greeting.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's just an inherently wrong, like, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying that's just a wrong attitude we all have. Because I think if we're going to ask,
I'm doing horribly, be like, oh my God, like, hey, like, let's talk.
But I think if you're asking the question, like, you should be prepared for any response. I don't know, that's weird to say, but like.
Well, no, clearly you say, how's it going?
Yeah.
But generally it's more like, hey, how's it going? Good. Yeah. Cool. Okay, bye. Yeah. Like it's you're passing someone on the way to the, not so much anymore, but like the printer, say, or someone at work, passing the hallway on the way to the bathroom or something.
Well, I think it really depends who's asking the question too.
Well, that's the thing. Is sometimes it's more of like you're just passing a coworker.
If it's a coworker, you see like once a day sort of thing.
Yeah, or versus like if you're talking like a close friend or a family member, you might be a little more like, hey, how's it going? Yeah. Like, are you okay?
Well, of course, whatever? But I just mean like it's just a weird. It's
like if the cashier at the grocery store says, hey, how's it going? I'm like, awful, blah blah blah. I'm like, probably not fair to unload on that cashier either, right?
Yeah, but I feel like also like that's part of the problem too. And I get what you're saying. And like in 99% of circumstances, it's not going to happen. Yeah. But I also feel like it sucks for you, or the quote unquote you, who is having a really horrible day to be like, well, I can't say anything to this person because it's going to burden them, even if it is a stranger. But sometimes people just maybe they just need the stranger to hear.
Yeah.
Because there's no like, I don't know. I feel
it's a tricky thing, right? I think those context is key there.
I think so. But I mean, I also think that if you're really like struggling in that moment where like you're literally in a really shitty spot and you just have to unload to anybody who's going to listen, I don't think you should feel guilty for that.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And I mean, I would hope that if I was in that position where I said to someone, hey, how's it going? And they were like, not good. Hey, what's going on? Like, let's be real. Talk.
We're okay. We've all had our struggles. We've all had our moments. We've all had our situations. I'm not downplaying any of that stuff, but I'm just saying, like, realistically, the three of us have been extremely, I don't know what the word lucky is, that we haven't been in a situation, at least that I don't know of, where it's been like, literally like, you just don't. You actually don't want to exist. Like, we all think those things. You actually are like at that point where it's like, you know what I mean? So I get it. Like, it's hard to really understand that.
Well, no,
but you hear stories all the time of people who are like, and I don't mean to be so deep, but like people all the time who are literally just at that breaking point. And it's just a random stranger that happens to look at them or smile or do something in that moment. And their brain's like,
well,
like, I mean, you just never underestimate the value of
that whole saying. You don't know what anyone else is going through, right? Like,
that's true.
None of us have, like, really, we have no idea what any of us are really going through behind closed doors.
Which is wrong. Like, we all should be able to tell people, but like, you know what I mean?
But I'm not getting it. But I'm just saying, but none of us really know. Like, and even with our parents or our friends, family, like, no one really knows what everyone's going through. So that's why you always got to just treat people with kindness and respect.
Yeah.
Like, whoever they are, because you don't know what anyone's struggles are, right?
I mean, I can honestly say that anybody, whether it was a stranger stranger, my worst enemy, or whatever the case would be, if they actually were like, came to me and was like, no, I'm like really in a bad spot, it would be like no judgments, no nothing. Like, let's just, I'm not saying you guys would. I'm just saying like in general.
Yeah. Well, I think a big difference is growing up like as Gen X's. Like, our parents were raised by the silent generation,
right?
God,
yeah.
Like, our grandparents weren't there to talk about feelings.
Well, but look at a lot of their, like, as much as we don't like to admit, because we see the, like, you know, happy grandma and grandpa version.
Yeah.
But how many of us, like, you know, our parents, like, the grandpas weren't necessarily great. They were, you know, working.
No, a lot of them came back from World War II, and they had issues.
Trauma.
Yeah, that they never dealt with. Exactly. So they dealt with it by, you know, whether they just bottled it up inside or
drank,
it came out drinking or whatever. Yeah. So, like, you know, and that trickles down, right? So our parents were raised by them, and then they try and turn it around, and we try and turn it around, and then you kind of...
Well, and that's why I always say, telling these stories, like, I have no resentment towards my parents. It just is what it is. They just did what they knew what to do.
No, and I think that's one of the biggest things. As you grow up, you realize your parents are just people.
Of course.
Right? Like, you kind of think, even as you're growing up and you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, you know, I'll kind of figure things out. It was like, you don't figure shit out.
You
like,
never figure shit out.
Everything is just, you're flying by the seat of your pants, and anything can change at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
You realize you have, you know, all you can control is how you react to things. You have zero control over life.
That's been one of like the biggest realizations that I've had like growing up, is like, oh my God, like people really, you know, there's no age where like it clicks and you like know what you're doing.
No, exactly. It's like when I turn 40, when I turn 50, when I turn whatever age is, I'm going to... everything's going to be fine. I'm going to understand it. I'll have life all figured out. No.
Yeah.
And when you think you're going to get to that point, then that's usually when the rug gets pulled out from underneath you.
Exactly. And, you know, it was our parents' first time going through this crazy world too, and they did the best they could in the moment.
Exactly.
Well, they have their own traumas, right?
Yeah.
Like that's carried through.
Exactly. And
so
you know,
here's another sort of, besides the stigma, and I feel like stigma is a strong word, but it is stigma. Like, again, it just wasn't talked about. It wasn't like offered. It wasn't.
No, and
like,
it was a lot more like when we were kids. It was a lot different too, because like now, I think because of, you know, sort of not getting into the whole political stuff, but because there have been so many cutbacks and things, that it's a lot more exposed.
Oh, yeah.
Where you go to a lot of big cities and you see a lot of people on the streets who clearly have mental health issues.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whereas like coming up as a kid, it was like sort of the stereotype, like almost like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? Here's the guys with the straitjacket taking away all crazy whoever,
Joey,
and put them in the insane asylum, right? Like that's kind of what we grew up thinking of. Mental health was stuff like that. These people are quote unquote crazy.
Yeah.
Put them in a straitjacket, throw them in this hospital for the rest of their lives.
Well, here's another thing too, like, you know, and again, I'm not trying to say that we grew up in this like ultra. I mean, try growing up in the 50s, it was way more difficult. But I'm just saying our own experiences growing up in the 80s and stuff, like, you know. All of our parents in one way or another went through like job losses and recessions and not being able to put food on the table, and the stress that caused between, you know, all of our parents are still, you know, married. I don't know if happy all the time.
A miracle some days.
But they're married. But I'm just saying, but you know, growing up, we've talked about this off camera, but growing up, we've all had experiences where we literally thought our parents were going to get divorced. And that's a lot as a kid, because my parents never sat down and said, hey, we're just having trouble. It was just, you know, one parent would be sleeping in the basement for a day and you just knew what was going on, but it was never talked about.
Well, because again, going back to this, it's your parents' first time going through this world too, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
They probably don't have that foresight to know that we're just going through a hard time. We're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Right? In that moment.
But I think it's more just like, at least my parents never sort of sat me down and was just like, okay, I get it. There's some stuff going on. Just like,
well, I think when we were growing up, it was kind of like the whole, we got to protect the kids. The less, you know, they don't understand. They're kids. They won't understand this, so they don't need to know about it. When in reality, it's like anyone in this household knows that there's clearly some friction going on here or something.
But that was scarier because you didn't know.
Well, like, exactly.
I would be like, oh my gosh, my parents are getting divorced.
Whereas now, sometimes it might be the opposite, where sometimes I think people are probably too over communicated with their kids. Maybe kids don't need to know every nitty gritty detail either. You know, so it's that fine line of whatever. But I think when we were kids, it was more like the kids can't understand. They're too little.
Yeah.
We got to protect them. So just they would ignore it. I mean, how many people you hear they say, like, I think again we were talking about this before, but you hear people be like, they didn't want to get divorced because they had kids, so they're going to stick around. You know, they stayed together until the kids graduate high school, and then they didn't get they split it right away. But then most of those kids are like, yeah, my parents hated each other.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like
it wasn't like home wasn't on supposed to be.
Whereas the parents are like, we're staying together for the kids, but it's like, yeah, but the kids know that clearly mom and dad are not happy and stuff, and it just affects the whole house.
Of course.
So it's like,
I mean, there's never a right answer.
No, there's no easy answer.
And also, it was just a lot different too. And again, I'm generalizing, but the era where it was is like, you know, it wasn't, and I'm not saying this callously or like, you know, whatever, but back then in the 80s, like a lot of moms didn't work. So, I mean, what kind of option did they really have other than to kind of stick through it?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not talking about situations where, there's like obvious abuse and stuff, but just like not getting along. I mean, I know 90% of my parents' arguments were about money. I mean, that's what it was.
Most people, that's family, that's
especially
money is the biggest stressor.
Growing up in the era, growing up in the era we did, like, I mean, I'm not going to obviously get into details and out, my parents' business, but my dad worked like terrible odd jobs just to put food on the table. Like, it was what it was, and it was stressful.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, trust me, I remember.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I get it, but as a kid going through it, but like it carries through adulthood, because a lot of times, I'm like reflecting and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember being so scared in those moments. Is this why I'm so anxious about these type of things as an adult? Like, it just
well, it impacts you in ways you don't even realize until after the fact. Probably
because you're kind of just exposed to it.
Well, that's where, I mean, in this age, a lot more people go to therapy for that
hold
stuff,
on,
right?
That's the next category.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to. So then, lack of access. Gen Xers may have had difficulty accessing mental health services due to barriers like stigma and cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know anybody that was in therapy when I was a kid.
Same. I didn't even know where to go.
Yeah. I mean, if they were in it, I definitely didn't know of it. But where you would go and stuff. I mean, I wouldn't
exactly.
even know. It was not talked about. It wasn't.
No. And again, I don't know for sure back then, but I doubt it. But I know now, like, a lot of employees have like, employee assistance programs where you have access to mental health. They have like mental health sort of like stuff built into their benefits to make it easier.
Yeah.
And mental health is just seeking a therapist is just not a stigma anymore. Like, it's almost like, oh, you don't have a therapist?
Yeah,
you know
that's
what
the thing.
I mean?
A lot of people think you're crazy if you don't have one.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you not have one?
At least just to go. And I think the thing is, like, at least for me, like, growing up with the stigma of it is I just assume that like therapists are like, they're going to make you tell all these horrible stories. But honestly, like, you can just go to therapy to just like talk about general stuff and just get it off your chest.
Well, a lot of it is just that. It's just talking, like, they're not
to an unbiased person
to quote unquote fix anything. It's just kind of to work through.
Well, just an unbiased person.
No, and that's exactly it. Because again, not even because you can go to your family or your friends to talk about stuff, but sometimes they're going to try and help. Where someone's like, what, I don't.
You just want somebody to listen.
Or, exactly. Whereas a lot of times people just want to try and help and fix things. Like, sometimes it's like, I don't need that or want that.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for a sounding board, basically,
and it's like,
to kind of unload.
I just want to understand why I'm so like crippled with anxiety over certain things.
Yeah,
like that
and that's where
stuff,
they can kind of help trace back sort of, like this thing, and how do you overcome those thoughts or feelings? Because that's all it is. It's all just thoughts and feelings.
I think the good thing full disclosure, like, I do not have a therapist. I do not go to therapy. I mean, I'm not saying we all probably should.
We
just
also
in general.
not therapists, so
no,
just reiterating that we don't know what we're talking about.
No,
so
we're just talking about our own experiences.
Medical advice.
Well, I'm not giving medical advice, but I'm just saying. But like, I think that I just lost my train of thought. I had it, and I was going on something you said, but I think that therapy can just be.
I think it's a good tool.
Well, no, of course.
It's a really good tool. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I don't even think it necessarily has to be somebody that you go sit and talk to, because I get it. That can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
I think it can just be like, reading books, or just find a motivational person that, you resonate with.
Yeah.
Just anything. I mean, I think that.
Well, that's the thing now in this day and age with the internet and stuff like that. I think it's a double-edged sword, but there's lots of resources out there. It's just trying to find
the right ones.
The right ones. Because I think there's a lot of crackpots out there too.
Of course.
People looking to capitalize on a lot of stuff.
A lot of snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking
like the Charlie Brown comic strip where he always, like, Lucy offers free advice for like 5 cents or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I think like there's a difference between. Again, I'll just use us as an example. There's a difference between us being like, you know what, I want to go to therapy to just kind of figure out why, like I said, why I'm so anxious about this, or why this triggers me to feel the way it does.
Yeah.
Versus, people who just really actually need, like, because there's a lot of varying degrees of mental health, right?
Well,
there's the trying to get through day-to-day life kind of stuff, but then, like, some people have really horrible tragic events happen that they just really need help with.
Yeah. Oh, there's
varying levels.
Well, there's, what do they call, like, general anxiety disorder,
which I feel like pretty much everybody has.
Well, they said, I think I remember reading somewhere that like
everybody
80% of the 90% of the population has it in some way, shape, or form. I think.
Yeah.
Some people can live with it. Some people it's debilitating. There's different levels of it.
That's exactly. There's different levels of all this stuff. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so childhood experiences. Gen Xers grew up during a time when latchkey kids were common and their emotional needs were often deferred. I agree. I mean, we kind of started growing up, like when I was very young, my mom was home, but at a certain point, like all of us, our mom had to go and work.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it was like, that's just what happened. I mean, I was lucky. I was never really a latchkey kid because my mom was always still home after school, or we had like neighbors that I could go to. So I was never by myself. But I remember so many kids had the little key on the necklace.
I had a house key on a shoelace. I used to wear around my neck. Yeah.
And think about it now. Like, so how old were you when you did that you can remember?
I think 11-ish.
No, that's not too bad. But like, how did you do that?
Well, no, see, because because when I was 10, my dad was in a super bad car accident. Right. He didn't work after that, so he was home after that. So from like 8 to 10 probably. Definitely I was, because at that point both my parents were working.
Oh, well, you had an older sister, so it was a little bit.
Yeah, but we went to different schools. So I was walking home by myself and things like that.
And that's crazy.
But then after 10, then my dad was home all the time.
But like kids just don't do that now. Like you just,
oh no, it's kind of crazy because sometimes we have friends who be like, oh, the kids can't walk. I'm like,
I'm not gonna lie though.
Can't walk to school? It's like
I'm not gonna lie.
Away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't have kids, but I'm not gonna lie. Like this world is so effed up that I don't want my 8-year-old walking down the street alone.
Yeah, it's a double.
It's so effed up, this world.
It's definitely like you have to find the balance between protecting kids and then nerfing the edges too much.
That's the whole. I
think that kids maybe don't necessarily need an adult, but like just walking alone, no, thank you, not happening. I mean, I'm not saying till 15, but like at least till at least you're like 10 or 11. It's just too scary for me.
Yeah. I don't know what the right answer.
Exactly.
But I know you're saying it's like at some point. Any kid, you need to cut the apron strings, and that kid needs to be able to be go on their own for somewhere, like walk into school or wherever. But
in the past, part of growing up was just becoming uncomfortable in in the house you grew up in, and you want to make your own life, right?
Yeah.
But if you're so comfortable and everything's so nerfed, like a lot of people just don't ever want to leave home.
Here's the thing, though. To me, it's like the fine line because I'm like. It's not there, especially this day and age. Like, there's a lot of freaking weirdos out there. Like, even as adults, we can become victims of stuff so easily. So, like, it just frightens me for children.
No, and I'm not. 100%. There's that, but not everybody out there is out to get you. And that's the thing with kids. They need to be somewhat resilient too, right? Like,
exactly.
They have to know that yes, there's always bad. Even when we were kids, there's bad people out there.
Oh my God, the trauma that we have. This is probably where my trauma comes from.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that they've always been there.
Well, so of course they have, and I agree. I'm not saying that when kids are 15 they need to be walked home by mommy and daddy.
Yeah,
but I'm saying for
some
me,
people think they do though.
Well, that's fine. But I'm saying
to me, it's crazy. But
I get it. But I'm saying for me personally, like I don't have children, so I don't know. It could be different. But I'm saying I would feel uncomfortable with my 7-year-old walking home by themselves. That's all I'm saying.
No,
it's just 7 feels so young. I know 7-year-olds. 7-year-olds are young. They're still stupid. They don't have common sense.
Yeah.
No. But I still think at the same time you need to be teaching them about
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think at some point it's like,
so they're prepared.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think it's all a judgment too.
Yeah.
But again, I think if a kid wants to walk like 4 houses up, go ahead. Do they want to walk 2 miles? Absolutely not.
Well, there's obviously a difference between how far you... Like from when I grew up to where my elementary school was, it wasn't far, but it wasn't close. Like, it was like a 10-minute walk. So not crazy, but you had to go through streets and stuff. I wouldn't have... I mean, I grew up with a neighborhood full of kids. We all walked together.
Yeah.
So it was different. But, like, I remember being sometimes walking home by myself, and it was intimidating, especially when you're, like... at least where my school was, like there was like the high school kids that were kind of there and they're all waiting at the bus stop and you had to walk by them. And again, every situation's different, but that's probably where my trauma comes from.
Yeah, but then sometimes that's good too, though, because
of course.
Hey, you did it and you were okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
so little toughness.
I had to walk by the like little townhouse neighborhood that was like back in the day, like the bad kids would live there.
Oh man.
So it was scary.
Yeah.
See? PTSD is what I'm saying. And this is what happens. Like if I had children, I'd probably pass that on to them and be all like,
well, and that's what happens. A lot of times parents,
generational trauma.
Yeah.
And that's what our parents did, right? And it's just an interesting thing to think about it. And I know we've had a lot of discussions just in general talking about different like stuff, and like you kind of realize now as an adult, you're like, oh, maybe that's why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
You start to look back and it, 100%. Yeah, it's like, oh, when that teacher called me an idiot in front of the whole class, I think that might have affected me.
That's why I'm anxious with authority figures even now, right? Like,
this is why I hate public speaking.
And it's so stupid because literally that is probably like if you're using that scenario and you did have anxiety around authority figures, like that's probably literally where it comes from when you were 8 years old.
And
like,
that's the one thing I hope people who are teachers and friends realize as a teacher. I know it's got to be frustrating as hell, but you have such especially like, kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, you have such an impact on those kids' lives that one time that you do let it slip and lose your cool.
Yeah.
The kid's going to remember that.
Now, I do think, though, it is a lot different as far as like back then. I feel like teachers could get away with a lot of shit, whereas now I feel like there's a lot like, there's like the standards are a bit more.
There's a lot more guardrails now.
Yeah.
On what's acceptable in the classroom.
And if they still do that, like that teacher is probably not going to be there again.
But regardless of what happens to the teacher, the fact that it happens is it's already too late for that kid. It's already.
Yeah.
The teacher can get reprimanded, whatever.
But I'm just saying, in your example, that teacher still taught.
Yeah.
So you would see her in the hallway.
I don't think I told anybody either.
I know, but I'm just saying if you probably weren't the only kid that happened to.
No, absolutely not.
So, I mean, they or he or whoever was just not a person who should be teaching.
No, I always say that. I remember the good teachers and I remember the bad teachers because they both had an impact. The middle of the road ones were, you kind of forget them, but I remember I had some really good ones. I had some really bad ones. Yeah,
so we'll move on to the next point.
All right.
Okay, so technological, I can't say that word, change. Gen X straddles the divide between pre-digital and digital eras, which can feel overwhelming. I mean, I guess probably subconsciously for me, I'm not super sitting here being like, oh my God, all this technology has made me crazy.
Maybe it has, you just don't realize.
But that's what I just said. Maybe subconsciously. I don't know. I mean, obviously there's way more access to information, good, bad, in between, fake, real, everything. Yeah. Like obviously there's more access to that.
I think the biggest thing is it's never off.
No, it's not.
I think that's the big, and I'm not like obviously I think work is that's been a massive change in the workforce.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But, I mean, like, you can watch TV while you're taking a shit nowadays.
Yeah.
Like,
I do sometimes.
But you can never do that, Yeah. I saw a guy talking about this, and I was like, wow, that's actually really... He was a comedian, but I'm like, wow, he's talking about... they were talking about mindfulness and how his whole bit was like, as a kid, no one had ever heard that word before.
No.
Which is basically... Mindfulness is basically being in the moment and just sitting here and just taking it all in.
Yeah.
But it's like the thing is like we had forced mindfulness because you didn't have a phone, so you had to sit. If you're going to the bathroom, you're having 10 minutes of mindfulness because there's nothing else to do in there.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
you're reading a magazine, but like you're there.
Yeah.
You're waiting in line at the grocery store. You're being mindful because you're just standing there for however long it takes.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the second you're bored, you whip out your phone and you're reading the news, you're watching meme video, whatever.
Exactly.
So it's you're always distracted.
Yeah. And I think obviously you have to if that's not good for you, you have to, force yourself to not do it. And I get it. It's easy because it's right there.
I think a lot of people may not even realize that.
No, I don't think so either.
They are doing it.
No, of course not.
No, exactly.
It's the second you're bored, you're just pointing. Like I don't even know if people even know. It's almost like Pavlov's dogs. It's just I'm bored. Whoop.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to be like, I only use my phone to call and text people.
Sometimes it's good to have to sit in your discomfort for a bit.
No, I think so. Yeah, you just need to sit there and just be in the moment of whatever it is.
Be bored.
Well, there's a reason that, how many people, like you hear artists and stuff complaining like at concerts.
Yeah.
Right? Like how many people that look out and everyone's there, but they're watching the concert through their phone as they're recording it and not actually.
And taking the whole experience
there and just being in the moment of the concert. You're kind of.
Yeah,
just trying to record it because you're going to record to your phone and never watch it again.
Well, I think just generally speaking, I think just with all the technology, it's just naturally everybody's brains just so much more overstimulated.
Well, no, and that's it's just a constant stream of noise
and dopamine,
good or bad, and then you get all this stuff too, where they're like basically like Facebook and someone's likened to like slot machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's this constant dopamine being hit you're getting, right?
Yeah, and they do all this research too, like to figure out who, how do we get people to stay on this longer? What are they looking at? What are they clicking on? How do we make this more addictive?
It doesn't, I mean, again, I'm saying this just callously. That's my word today. But I don't even know if that's a word.
Callous?
Yeah, but I'm just saying this loosely. Like, it doesn't take, like, I know being on my phone for 2 hours a night watching TikTok is probably not the best for my brain. Like, I know that. It's
brain
not
rot.
like,
it's a thing.
Well, no, but I know that it's not the best use of what I could be doing 100%. Like, I'm not dumb to that fact.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, because again, you get addicted to it. It gives you this self-soothing. It's like kids with soothers, right? It's like this self-soothing kind of thing. And I think that, obviously you have to, which is hard because I mean, I had to do it recently, like just on a super high level. Like I was getting so immersed and watching all the videos from all the political stuff happening here in other countries.
Yeah.
And I was watching and watching and watching it. I was getting more and more angry and I was venting it out. And I was just like, okay, I've kind of hit that point where I'm just like, I've had enough because there's really nothing you can do. You're just ingesting it.
Yeah.
And then I finally had to just be like, you know what? I'm not watching anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm 100% the same way with everything in the news right now. It's like, okay, I need to just stop looking at this stuff because it's just.
Exactly.
It's stressful.
It's stressful.
It's, yeah.
There's being informed, and then there's going to the point where it's just too much.
Well, exactly. How many articles can you read about the same general topic? The same people in the same groups.
Exactly.
It's like, okay.
And then a lot of the news, it's really disingenuous now because they're using clickbait titles for things. And it's like, this isn't news anymore. You're just trying to get me to click on this article.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, that happened to me a couple of years ago when the war started in Ukraine and stuff. It was the same thing. It was like watching and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I can't watch anymore. And then like for me, like it's so stupid because then you end up kind of feeling like, at least in that situation, because it's a very tragic situation, you end up feeling guilty for kind of being like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But I have to tell my brain, like, I just can't care anymore.
But this is the technology piece, right? Because the machine wants you to keep watching.
Of course.
Wants you to keep looking, right? Of course. And there's only so much that happens in a 24-hour day, right?
Yeah.
They got these 24-hour news cycles. They got to keep pumping out new things to make you
click. Well, of course. I mean, again, I'm not dumb to the fact that everything is made for people to consume. Like they're not going to put up like a boring like whatever, because I know people are, well, let's be real, people on YouTube, raise our hands, we've all done it to an extent. I mean, some people are extreme towards it, but like you said, the clickbait, you want people to watch your videos. So you want, before they even click, you want them to click on it. And how do you do that? You have a catchy title or you have a crazy thumbnail. Right. It's just what it is.
But I'm just saying, like that's where news has changed, right? News used to be like informational and like journalistic and impartial.
But once it became,
it absolutely was.
CNN kind of screwed it all up. 24-hour news is what ruined it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when our parents would watch the news, like you see like Walter Cronkite on there like for an hour at night. And stuff like that. Like it was a totally different. News was totally different because it's 1 hour. That was it. Now once it was 24 hours, it's like, oh crap.
How do we fill up this time?
We need to make it, keep people watching it too. Then not just 24 hours of like. Local news it's boring. Right? So you try and find those sensational stories, whether it's local or international or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's why they salivate the news over like when there's sort of conflicts, wars, wildfire, natural disasters, anything that's like big, like they're like, thank God, now we can just pump the shit out of this.
Exactly. And the big shift happened, right? They used to report on what has happened, and now they report a lot on what could happen. The possibilities of things, right? And it's a lot of speculation.
A lot of it's too. It's like, this could happen, this may happen. It's like,
exactly. It's like, well, what is actually going to happen here? Like,
it's like, well, we don't know, but
well, one of my things was,
but keep watching.
We think.
One of my things was, and again, I'm not getting into the details of it, but just the high level because it doesn't matter. But one of the things that started freaking me out, and I remember even asking you guys, was that whole like, Canada's going to become the 51st state. Whatever your opinions are on that, that's fine. But I'm just saying that was like, I was like, no. And I'm like, the more I watched and listened and heard to the crazy, I was like, I said to you guys, I'm like, can that really happen? And obviously on like a million different levels and things that could, but like generally speaking, like, no, that's not going to happen. But like you get so caught up into it. And then I was starting to panic about it. And I'm like, oh my God, and then you just have to be like, whoa. Just relax.
No, exactly, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, living up here, like that's that's still probably the number one story up here right now for the last like month or two. Like it's
But I mean, again, like anything could happen, yes, but like realistically happening, no. It's just again a lot of clickbait, right? It's a lot of clickbait.
But they want you to read the stories, because that's how they make their money, right? Because there's ads in there. Right, so that's where they want you to watch the video to get see their ads pop up or go to click on their website because they got the ad. So it's
even though it's like just the same soundbite that's been played 100 million times already.
Well, that's exactly it. It's not like new news. It's just old stories recycled. And it's hard to turn it off. So it's just like right now with the technology, it's just
And
always there.
I think it's just hard because you have to be able to self-regulate that for yourself, which is hard for a lot of people. And a lot of the thing, like I said, at least for me,
that's the word that comes into play here is addiction, right?
Yeah.
At what point are you like, oh my God, I'm addicted to this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I think that you don't really realize it until you realize it. Like me with the whole politics thing.
Yeah.
Didn't really realize it to that one day. You're just like, I can't even watch it. And then I'm like,
yeah.
No.
Well, I think everyone is to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's just,
can you stop?
can you,
or can you take that break? Right?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. There's some people who can, some people can't, and it's everything in between. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's just sort of what your own.
Yeah, no, it's a double-edged sword of technology. It's done so much good and changed the world in so many good ways, but then there's also a whole lot of negative effect too.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the same with everything as things evolve. It's just good and bad, right? All right. Work-life balance. Gen Xers are often stretched thin by career demands, family responsibility, and financial pressures. I mean, I feel like obviously that can be for any generation, but I feel like our generation though, like we grew up with like boomer bosses, right? Our bosses were boomers, and boomers are tough son of a bitches. I mean, love you, boomers. Our parents are boomers. But but I mean, again, they grew up in the
they weren't
parents who went to war.
Yeah,
and
they
like,
were. You work 80 hours a week if you have to. And
yeah,
you shut
you
up
go
and
to
just do it.
You go to work when your appendix is about to explode. Like you know, like you take an hour off to go to your mom's funeral, and you go back to work. Like that's just how it was.
Yeah, the work has to get done. We don't care about what appointments have or anything outside of this office. We don't care about.
Yeah,
no.
It was you're here to work. We pay you, so shut up and do it.
And that's the term work-life balance. I really remember that kind of popping up, like maybe like 10. 15 years ago,
it kind of became like a real thing,
yeah.
Because the millennials started it.
Yeah.
That and,
which I mean, for all the shit that I talk about millennials, because sometimes you can be whiny, I praise you guys for starting the whole work-life balance because, I mean, it's huge. It's important.
Yeah.
So now, like, when I first started in my careers, I had a lot of boomer bosses, and now there's a lot of more, like, millennial or older millennial bosses. And there's a difference in a lot of how they...
And I think the time, because it was like 10 or 15, because you look at how long has the cell phone been around now? Like 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
About 20 years, yeah.
Right? So you had 10 years of it, and people were like, hey, wait, this isn't so great. And now the last 10 years, it's, now we're seeing all the sort of the, having the unfettered access and, just everyone had smartphones, and you had your work emails on it, and you could check it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and everyone's like, hey, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Do that for like 10 years, it's like, hey, wait, this is not so cool.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
now...
I want to unplug when I go home.
Yeah, and like, wait, I'm not getting paid for this time, and like, I'm getting, like, expected to be available 24/7, so, you had that sort of 10 years of like, hey, this is all cool, great. And then it's like, okay, fuck this.
Yeah.
And there's
this
like,
is terrible.
Well, and there's the pushback now, right? So a lot of we are so ingrained, like we and the three of us, we're so ingrained in the work. Because we've talked about this before, in the, like, even to this day, like to call in sick, the guilt that you feel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
like, it's insane. It's like, and it's like, and 9 times out of 10, the boss is like, okay, you're sick.
Well, and I look at that now, like, and I don't particularly care, but like, I work with some, there's still some boomers there that I work with, millennials.
Yeah. Gen
Z, I guess.
Yeah.
But when I look at who call, and because the other day I thought, I'm like, man, these, and they're like the millennials, and then it's like, man, there's how many times I've been, like, I think I've called in sick once in like,
because that's just ingrained in our, I'm not saying that's healthy.
No, but I'm just saying that we're them. I'm like, man, they're sick again. Like,
because they take mental health days. And I think the best thing in the world, if you need it, is a mental health day.
Oh, absolutely. There's some days where you just need to be like,
I don't want to talk to anybody.
I just not go to work today.
Yeah, because because then, and the other thing too, where I work with people, and it's like, it's not also healthy to be like sitting at your desk, throwing your headset around, yelling and swearing. Like, because I see people doing that, it's like, okay, that's not healthy at all.
No, of course not.
I mean, it's good to bottle it up inside is not good either.
Go to your car and scream.
But yeah, it's so it's like that fine line. But sometimes you just need to be like, you know what, just take a day, just relax, chill out. It's gonna be fine. But
we say that. But how icky does it feel to actually call in for that?
You're always like,
I know.
Like,
it gives you like a kind of a gross feeling.
And not to mention the guilt of calling in sick. Like, you could be throwing up and, like, coming out of all ends.
Yeah.
And that whole entire day until 5 o'clock hits, you're like, oh, my God, I feel bad I'm not at work. Oh, my God, I feel bad I'm not at work.
No,
and then 5 o'clock hits and you're like, okay.
And then you go, and then when you go to work, then it's like, oh, what did I miss?
I know, but like
that's always sometimes it too. It's like, what am I,
But that's such
a making it more of a tomorrow problem.
Yeah.
But that's such a crazy like thing that is just so ingrained in us for having like sort of the boomer bosses. That's how they did things.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a lot different now. Even having like millennial or even Gen X bosses where they're a little more like, oh, how's it going?
I find Gen X bosses, like, especially the ones that are around our age, like, not maybe this older because they're on the cusp of boomer, right? Those ones, but it's sort of like the older millennials and the younger Gen X's. Like, there's that mash where there's still some people that are very much like whatever, but then a lot of them, because, like, you know, we talk about Gen X traits and stuff, and I have a lot of Gen X traits, but I also have a lot of the older millennial traits in the sense of, like, you know, wanting to give people the space they need to do things and not be like drill sergeant and you know, like, and it matters because, like, having an employee who isn't scared to say, look, I think I told this story, but there was a video and she was a boss and she said that one of her employees came to her and said, I need to take my dog to the vet. And he was all scared. He's like, I need 2 hours. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Just put off your calendar your way. I trust that you're going to get the work done.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm going to put in for 2 hours of, like, PTO for that. And she's like, no, I don't want you to take time. Put in your calendar your way. If you have to make up the work later, make it up. But if you're fine, then you're fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, could you, that is such a.
It's a big difference.
It was nice to hear that because, it's not, because somebody would say, no, sure, take it. Just make sure you submit the request form and we'll take it.
Or it would be like, well, what are you going to miss in those 2 hours?
What's wrong with your dog? Is he really that sick? Can you wait till the weekend? Like, exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
And on top of everything else everybody has going on in their life, that's just one more thing to have to, like, worry about and navigate. So it's like just builds up and builds up and builds up, right?
Oh yeah, I think work stress is a real thing for a lot of, you know, for most people. I think you know there's that work stress of whether you're working too hard, long, whatever.
Well, then you come up, and I mean, I guess thankful or lucky, whatever the word is, but, like, you know, we come home, at least we don't have to deal with, like, you know, feeding kids dinner and getting them ready for bed and keeping them alive. Yeah. You know, like, we just have to worry about ourselves, and then sometimes I'm like, damn, that's hard enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, exactly. Because, you know, like you said, I don't know anyone. I know we talked about this previously, but, like, everyone I know has kids. They're all working, like, both full-time, both parents.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's someone at home. You know, you got like 4 hours when you get home at night to do
Cram
all the family
in.
housework. Yeah. Whatever you got to do, you know, like trying to squeeze all that in there, like the grind, it just doesn't end.
No, it's pretty rare to find a stay-at-home parent these days.
Yeah, I don't think I know any. No.
I mean,
sadly,
I mean, especially, like, sort of where we live, like, you definitely need to have, that one person needs to have a very minimum 6-figure job to be able to have one parent stay home. Whatever. Like, I know there's ways to make it work, but it's very, like, it's a lot.
It's pretty rare. Like I said, I can't think of anybody that I know that is doing that. Sadly, no, nobody.
And I think that's it's tough because there is some, you know, parents that want to be able to stay home and raise their kids.
The thing. It's just I don't think it's an option. Yeah.
I don't think it's ideal for most people that when their kids, at least in Canada, when your kid's 12 or 18 months old, when your maternity leave's over, to, like, ship them off to strangers. Like, it's definitely, I'm sure, not ideal for most.
No, I think there's a lot of people who choose not to, but
yeah,
sadly, it's just not an option.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah. So how Gen X is approaching mental health today. Gen Xers are becoming more open to discussing mental health concerns and seeking support. They are recognizing the importance of addressing mental health for overall well-being and performance. They are starting to embrace the importance of talking about and receiving treatment for mental health. I mean, I think that's it. Like, I think that it's just more of a discussion. Like, you know, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's night and day difference.
Could you see that happening?
I heard the train coming off the tracks right there.
You were just like, is she going to catch it? I was like, no.
Yeah, it's a night and day difference because it was just never talked about that I ever remember.
The one thing that I don't know. I feel like there is real value in, like, it makes me so sad when there's, like, young kids who suffer from anxiety for whatever reason, whether it's just the brain makeup, the chemicals of the brain, or they've experienced trauma, whatever. But, like, you know, I've never underestimate the power of, like, having your kids talk to a therapist early on.
No, and I think that's I think the biggest thing is people will do that more now.
Because
they won't just kind of be like, oh, it's nothing, it's fine.
Then over it. It's like getting them started young if they need it. It pays dividends down the road, right?
Well, it helps them be able to process. It also makes them, like, used to talking to strangers about it, and then, you know, maybe they wouldn't be so traumatized like we are.
No, and it doesn't seem so like such a foreign idea to them.
No, it's teaching them the tools to learn how to deal with their anxiety. Right? Like.
let's be real. Like, we all have it, and it's not a fun thing to deal with.
No, that's half the battle, is like knowing how to handle it when it happens.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, because there are lots of tricks and tools to deal with it, but it's knowing how to do it and do it right and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody with like a heart that's beating lives without stress in their life.
God,
no. It's in our DNA. It's in our friggin' caveman pea-sized brains in there that just can't deal with all the stimulations and stuff.
Everyone's gonna have moments of stress and anxiety in their life, and eliminating is not an option.
No, just how to deal with it. And I think also, can you imagine, like, especially like kids, like what's all is going on in the world now, and them like just ingesting it secondhand.
Yeah.
But also like oh my God. Never mind. I didn't.
Did you fall off the tracks again?
No. But also ingesting it. But like, and then also talking about like, kids, there's so much going on. There's so much brain growth they're doing and hormones that are happening. Like, oh my gosh. Honestly, I think therapy for your kids is just an investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, exactly. I know.
Just for them to sit and talk about their day, like nothing crazy, but just to know that it's okay to just talk about.
Well, I mean, it's different now too, because I have friends that have split up, and like first thing they do is they put their kids into to go talk to like a therapist, which is genius. I think
brilliant,
fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely, because it's traumatic.
No, exactly. So it's like that's great, because I know as kids, I had friends whose parents split up and stuff, and
no, and I mean you could have the most.
You want to stay with?
No, but that's the thing.
It
can be the most amicable split up too, but I still think like there's a lot for kids to process.
Oh God, it doesn't matter how amicable. Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, so it was nice, but I've seen it, hear that a lot more now, where people will do that, and it's like, oh, that's great. Let the kids, whether they do it a couple of times or whatever, but just it's good. Get them go have the talk with people, and someone that's not their parents or family, because it's not.
No, you always
it's not
have
the same.
To have
You're always going to be guarded talking to family or friends. Like you never feel like you can be 100% open.
No, at least I know with your parents, you would probably be guarded for sure, because you don't want them to,
Well, parents especially, especially with a little kid like that, it's
And
it's nice to see that, and it's good, and it's much more commonplace now. But you even see now, like, I don't know, I'm curious about, but there's like apps they have that are like sort of like online therapy and stuff like that. I have no idea how good they are, or something like that, but they're definitely out there.
They are out there. I mean, there's lots of resources. Obviously, you have to do your due diligence, and I don't think anything, can really replace like an actual licensed therapist that can help you, give you the proper tools, whether you do it virtually or in the office and you lie on the proverbial couch and talk. Like, even I've had people like talk about therapy, and like sometimes they go to therapy and like all this shit comes up that they didn't even know, but then they're like, other times we sit there and just talk about our kids all day, like like it's just that like unbiased, unjudging.
Well, it's just a
time,
a quote unquote safe space where you can just talk about whatever. No, and I think it's really nice to see, because like you said, we're growing up, for us parents doing that stuff was going to therapy and stuff was, I'm sure it happened, but it was definitely
it was also
it was not the norm by any means, whereas now it's, and no one even thinks about it. Someone said, hey, I need a mental health day, or I'm feeling so stressed, and you would just, okay, good, take it. You're not going to, whereas, like 20 years ago, be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, you want a day off for what?
You want a day off to be lazy?
It was just not, it was just unheard of. Whereas now it's just so much more open. It's nice to hear and to see, and it's good. Because, you realize you're not crazy, you're not alone. This is not such a unique problem that, oh my God, no one's ever felt this way or thought this. It's like, no. You realize everybody goes through stresses. Everyone has stress in their life in some way, shape, or form, and it's just how you deal with it. But you realize that it's
and I think, if you really think about it, and going through history, we can think of many moments. But I'm just saying, in the past, let's just say 5 years alone, the crazy stuff that's happened, like the whole COVID self-isolation for years, and dealing, people who have health anxiety, worrying about getting sick and dying from COVID.
The polarization and splitting of society down different lines because of vaccine mandates,
which is
pandemic and isolation,
which has turned into, now we're in one of the most politically unrest times for, even for Canada. Like we're going through our own political trauma right now.
There's such a divide. It's sad. Again, it's like the same thing. You just kind of wish everyone would realize, hey, we have way more in common with each other than anybody above us.
But I mean, all that stuff, it's just like, but it's, boom, boom, boom.
And it's just stressful everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but you just kind of, it's nice to see that everyone
You're getting a spam call. I love that it says spam. Likely spam. Oh, you just answered. Oh, I thought you answered it.
No.
stop spamming. But yeah, I mean, and I think that that's sort of, there's just a lot going on. And
well, that's the thing. There's a lot going on. There's always a lot going on.
Yeah. And
that's just, outside of your world, not a lot, then what's going on in your daily life too, like work, family, finances.
And I think the best message is just like, do what you need to do for yourself. If you need to talk to people, talk to people. If you just need to read some books, read whatever the case may be, just do what you need to do for yourself.
Well, there's resources out there. Yeah,
you're the most important person, and you're the only one that really knows how to take care of your own self. So
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, there's tons of resources. Like I said, we'll put a couple of links to some phone numbers and stuff like that. But there's lots of resources out there. So never be ashamed to ask for help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. I guess that's.
Yeah, and just on that note, if you need, we are not licensed therapists, so please don't take any of our comments or our conversation here today as therapy or advice.
Yeah, talk to a professional.
We're just talking about our own experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, guys, but that is it for today's video podcast. We thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Stay safe out there.